trying to say that, just a quick summary, when Mashiach comes, it's going to be what's called, the sages say, Torah Chadasha Me'iti Teitzeh. A new Torah will come forth from me. What is this Torah comprised of, says the different sources. One is the secrets of the Torah that are so deep that basically only Mashiach could find them, and because they come from prophecy. And then two is a certain change in halacha regarding the shechita of the shur habar from the fins of the Leviathan. And we said, after much talk, we concluded that they're connected with each other, and we're trying to figure out what the connection is, why all of a sudden this halacha will change when the secrets come out. That it's like they're part and parcel of one another. That when this new revelation of intellect comes out from Mashiach, then it's going to come out this new rule of the koshering of this shechita. And we said what's unique about the koshering of this shechita, the Rabbi told us how it's going to change, is that it already was from lechatchila was kosher and was an exception to all the rules of shechita. That even though you're not allowed to shecht with a jagged edge, and a fish's fin is a jagged edge, this particular shechita was an exception to all the laws of shechita, and this fact was not known until Mashiach is going to come along and tell us that there's a new Torah, and he's going to explain to us why it's permissible. And basically the Rabbi is doing that right now. He's explaining that the permissibility is that there was an exception to the rule of shechita, and this is, so to speak, the Torah Chadasha on the mitzad, the union of halacha. And now the Rebbe is explaining why that's coming out specifically in tandem with the secrets of the Torah. Why is that two things together required? And he said, in order to understand this, we have to look into, in general, the arguments of the Torah, that when a greater level of intellect comes out, it also changes and tampers the halacha. And we find this, he said, with the arguments of Beis Shamai and Beis Hilel. So now everyone understands what I'm saying? Yeah? So we looked in Beis Shamai and Beis Hilel, they said...
Rabbi Pasternak?
Yeah.
Can I just ask, when you say the Rabbi, this is the Rabbi Shletter?
The Rabbi, yeah.
Cool. And from which sefer is this?
This is Tafshin Nun Aleph Sefer. Dvar Malchus, they call it. From last year's the Rebbe's Sichas. Parshas, it's a Sicha from, here it says on the top of the page. Beis Chag, the Chag HaShavuos. Alright, so going into so we have to investigate Shammai and Hilel and their arguments in order to understand this principle that we just brought out. And basically we said that they argued for many years, for 3 years, and each one was holding their ground, and they didn't know what to do, until a bas kol came out and said, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, v'halacha kebeis Hilel. They're both words of the living God, the halacha goes like Hilel. Why do we listen to a bas kol suddenly? When Torah lo b'shamayim hi, when there's a whole story about Rabbi Eliezer and the stove that we discussed the other day, that we don't, even if a bas kol will come out, we go by the majority rules. Because in this case, the majority ruled. In other words, Hilel was more numerous. So why do they need a bas kol to begin with? Who can say?
Well, I thought it was because Shammai's teachings were deeper and they didn't understand it.
Right, because Shammai was smarter. All right, he was sharper. And so even though the majority was with Hillel's comprehension, Beis Hillel's comprehension of the thing, but Shammai wasn't like putting their guns down even after a vote, because they realized that they had a better insight into the thing. So a bas kol came down. In this case, we listened to a bas kol because it didn't tell us to contradict the principles of the Torah. It actually supported the principles of the Torah. And it was just like a sort of sign from heaven, like, yes, stay with the Torah. We're not it's not coming from heaven to tamper with the laws of the Torah. It's coming from heaven to support the laws of the Torah. You understand?
So they stayed with Hillel?
So the halacha went like Hillel, and to this day,
the laws of the Torah was to stay with the majority?
That's what the bas kol said. The halacha is like Hillel.
But then there's also a big midrash that when Mashiach comes, we go back to Shammai.
All right, so that's
that gospel separate.
no. This is it's not that part of that bas kol. No, but that's what we're going to discuss right now. That's the whole
Isn't it
topic of the
Rabbi
day.
Elazar, in that case, also Rabbi Elazar had the better arguments for the Avon of Achnan, no?
Okay, but he was a minority.
But it's
Minority.
minority.
If you're a minority, then the halacha is not like you. And even if a baskol will come and say that halacha is like you, this is where the whole principle of, lo b'shamayim hi. I mean, it says in the Torah, lo b'shamayim hi, but they quoted, they said that they heard mamash a voice of God saying the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer, and they said we don't care. Torah lo b'shamayim hi. That's not how we paskin. We don't paskin on baskols. We paskin on understanding the Torah and the Torah's principles. And the Torah's principles here say that the majority rules, as always. And so we don't care what your baskol says. Your good ideas and your baskol can go home. The halacha is like us.
No, I got all that. It's just the reason for what, as you said, then why do we need a baskol to begin with here?
Yeah.
Is like
they themselves were of doubt
because their reasons were good.
Okay.
But Rabbi Elazar was also holding his ground because his reasons were good.
Okay, but in the end, I guess they didn't have the majority didn't have a doubt. It looks like over here even Hilel had something of a doubt. Because they also knew that Shamai was coming from a deeper place, but as he was saying, they didn't understand the deeper place, and we said that the whole idea of a judge is that you can't just paskin like someone because you think they're smarter than you or they're on a higher level than you. You have to understand the concept in yourself and paskin accordingly. So they did not understand where Shamai was coming from. They didn't catch his arguments, let's say. But they knew that Shamai was smarter, so in other words, that's why they couldn't sort of come to a final conclusion. Shamai wasn't willing to give in, and Hilel wasn't willing to just run away with it until the baskol came and told them Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim and halacha kehilel.
That's where we feel that the principle that you can't paskin from authority.
That's what we're saying over here, that in general, all the arguments of the Torah, where do they stem from? So we gave over a midrash that when Moshe went up to get the Torah from Hashem, Hashem gave him 49 reasons to kasher everything and puzzle everything. 49 reasons to tahor everything and matame everything, right? Mm-hmm. And basically, he was given all the wisdom of God, showing how every single halacha could go either way. And not only just right or left, but 49 ways right, 49 ways left. So Moshe said, how are we going to paskin from here? What am I going to tell them? I can't tell them all this. So that's why Hashem said, don't worry, achrei rabim lahatos. You have to go after the majority, and whenever the majority will say, that will be my will. So with the Sanhedrin was established in such a way that they had to paskin, but they would, to answer your question, they would paskin from the side, which means that the least great, everyone would have to go and learn the halacha deeply and with the chavrusa and meditate on it and come up with their own conclusion. And when they would actually give their answer, we said yesterday they would do it in such a way that the lower judges had to give their answers first, and the Av Beis Din had to give that answer last, so that no one would be swayed by someone of higher authority. So this is the principle this comes from. You can't paskin, but in general, there's a halacha that says ein lo ladayan elamasha einav ro'os. Right? It comes from the Gemara of Sanhedrin, and Rambam paskins like that in halacha that the judge can only paskin according to what his eyes see. In other words, not what his friend tells him. He has to come to the conclusion on his own in order to judge.
And sorry to keep doing this. I just so fascinated by this. The achrei rabim. How does the phrase end?
Lahatos.
Lahatos.
Yeah, means to veer.
And that's from the Gemara as well.
No, that's a pasuk in Chumash. But the perush of it, that it means that you have to basically, judge by the majority is it's a perush.
The idea that God's following that as well. That's from
the midrash. Tehillim, based on your Gemara of Yerushalmi.
Midrash Tehillim on
here, footnote 51 at the bottom, page 182.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the scenario. That's what we got up to yesterday. Okay, so now let's go on to page 182, the second column. Zohi Gam hasbara b'hapluktos de Beis Shamai Beis Hilel. So in general, talking about this whole idea of there's reasons to say it's kosher, there's reasons to say it's pasul, and the Torah is vast, and basically it just has to get paskind according to men in order to know the will of God. This is also the story between Shamai and Hilel. Huh?
Sorry.
Plugtos means arguments. Arguments. Sheberiboy halachas shenechaklu behem, right? That in most of the halachas that they argued about, no team Beis Shammai l'chumra, Beis Hillel l'kula. As we know from Tanya, Beis Shammai was always leaning towards being strict, and Beis Hillel was always leaning towards being lenient. So basically, nowadays, when they paskin, everything goes like Hillel, we have like a Torah of leniency in terms of what it could be. That basically every halacha leans towards Hillel and he's lenient. You alright, David?
I just took my papers to 5 minutes ago.
Ooh, dirty man.
You can have mine.
Okay. Kevan! You guys sharing?
Yeah.
That's some brotherly love
These are
right
probably
there.
yours, yeah.
Alright, so anyway, they would go one towards Chumrah, one towards Kula. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. Kevan sheba'osam inyanim shebehem yesh panim lakan and panim lakan. Since in those things where it's possible to see it this way or that way, l'chumra or l'kula, strictly or leniently, netiyas sichlam, beteva briasam, the leaning of their intellect from their very nature of their being created that way, shenais al pi shorish nishmasam lamaila, which was put into them according to the source of their soul above. He b'derech klal is in a general way, but often shezen noted l'chumra v'zeh l'kula, is that Shammai had a predisposition to look at things strictly and leaned towards. Let's say, yeah. Same as lahatos, same root. And Hillel had a predisposition to see things in a kula, because like basically their soul, one came from chesed primarily, and therefore just like all of his, it's like we had the Sfiros HaOmer. There's such a thing called Gevura Shebechesed, Tiferet Shebechesed, Malchus. All the Sfiros are of chesed. They're Hasidic. And whereas Shammai was the exact opposite way. Like no matter what his midos were, they were all coming from perspective of Gevura, which is basically he was leaning towards stringency and self-refinement and disciplinary in everything he looked at. And if you look through the whole Shas, you'll see that even they argue about every single different law in the Torah, there's one thing they have in common, is that they're always taking these two sides. Hillel is always lenient, and Shammai is always strict. And I'm sure there's a footnote here that he says that, let's see. Right. That there's a few different places, if you look at footnote 56, there's a few different things that they're called Makuli Beis Shammai, Mechumni Beis Hillel. Right? That Shammai is lenient and Hillel is strict. And he says this is mitzad, he's klalu shebechol inyani to kedusha, because something which is really black and white, that Hillel is only chesed and Shammai is only gevura, period, and there's no intermingling whatsoever, that's already comes from the side of klippa. Kedusha always has some, holding of the other midah inside of it, because that's the way that there's able to be achdus, shalom, and unity in the world, right? So there's a few areas, like one or two, I think there's actually maybe 3 cases, where Shammai is lenient and Hillel is strict, but by and large, it's the other way around. And even in those few areas, actually, it's said in certain sichas, that in certain places, even being strict really comes from a side of leniency. Right? In other words, that even their tendency towards paskening that you cannot do this, which let's say is a strict thing. Sometimes saying no is really a way of being Hasidic, and sometimes saying yes is really a way of being Gevuridic. So in other words, even in the areas where they switched sides, they still sort of stayed with their primary midah of Chesed and Gevura. Anyway, so he's getting to this point that each one stayed with their natural inclination that came from the source of their soul. Okay, so how do we basically decide the law? As we said, like according to the opinion of the majority, you go after the Now, here's what Yitzi was saying. In a place where there's a suffix when it comes to the determination of the majority, why would there be such a suffix if it's the majority? Because mechadde tefei, because Shammai was just so much smarter, right? They really were just like a different breed of man. So everybody was a little bit nervous about paskening so readily, just because we have the majority. So in such a case, somchin ala baskol, in such an area, you can listen to the baskol. And the baskol, because anyway, only if the baskol would have said go like Hilel, would you listen to it. You wouldn't listen to the baskol if it said go like Shammai, right? Because it has to follow the principles of the Torah. But if it does come out and it's brought from a heavenly voice, so then okay, we're going to keep things as normal and we're going to go with the majority. It came to support the decision. Sharper. Tefei means more. Mechadde it comes from sharp.
Did we just say you only listen to the baskol
if it stays with the principles of the Torah's rules anyway?
So just like
supports,
it doesn't like make the decision.
It doesn't make the decision. That's the point. Because Torah lo b'shamayim. Hine klal zeh.
Cheerleader basketball.
Yeah, basically. Hine klal zeh. No, in other words, it's a big decision if you go like Hilel or Shammai. It's going to change the entire practice of Judaism for the rest of the ages.
Right.
So they wanted to make sure they had it right. Now Hashem helped out. It's nice to know, it's nice for all of us to know that we had a baskol backing us up. Everything comes mamish from a godly voice.
Does anyone in Chabad already follow Beis Shammai in preparation?
No. Shammai b'makom Hilel ain't no Mishnah. It says if you do that, you're in big trouble. One of the first Mishnahs in Brachos says that Shammai says you're supposed to lie down in order to say Shema. So one of the sages, he was attacked by robbers on his journey, and they said you had it coming to you because you went like Shammai instead of Hilel. You lied down and say Shema. So there's a big thing not to go like Shammai until such time as we get to go ahead, and we'll see what time that is. How do we decide to get to go ahead? As he's pointing out a point that we're going to go like in the future like Beis Shammai. Probably everybody knows that the Rebbe is going to bring that out here. Hine klal zeh shehalacha gebeis Hilel. Oh, here you go. Your point is pretty much right here. The next line. This principle that the halacha goes like Beis Hilel, ad shebeis Shammai b'makom Beis Hilel eino Mishnah. To the point that if you say Beis Shammai in the place of Beis Hilel, it's just not a teaching. It's incorrect, wrong, right? Eino ela b'zman hazeh. That's only nowadays. But we know that in the future, halacha will be like Beis Shammai. It's a big thing. The whole Torah is going to change. So this is like what we were saying before, like what are other halachas going to change when Mashiach comes? It looks like almost every halacha is going to change like Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes. But again, it's not because he's going to come and necessarily just start making new halachas. It's all based on a certain principle. And the explanation is as follows. Since we've already determined the halacha has been paskin like Beis Hilel, Kadas Harov, and they were the majority. How in the world could it be? It's like a heretical seemingly. How in the world could it be that we're going to all of a sudden overturn the halacha and go like Beis Shammai? Hepech haklal da'achrei rabim lahatus, which is the exact opposite of this principle, which is then supported by a baskol, that we go after the majority and we paskin like Beis Hilel. Shalach Beis Hilel shetiyah la'achrei shebeis din hagado. Okay, here he's going for it now. He says because achrei rabim lahatus shalach Beis Hilel. Sorry, we're at the bottom line. Right. So this how eich yitachin should be like this. Hepech haklal of achrei rabim lahatos. That it goes against you go after the majority. So then he goes on and says sha'alacha kebeis Shammai tiyeh la'achrei shebeis din hagadol shebYerushalayim yamdu leminyan. Because this whole notion that we're going to go like Beis Shammai will be after the Beis Din Hagadol in Jerusalem will stand up and count again the votes. V'das harov tiyeh kebeis Shammai, and the majority will be like Beis Shammai at that time.
Bigger intelligence will be.
That's right.
Yamdu Lumenyon, they would recount.
They're going to stand and count again. Right? And the idea of Al Yedei Zeh Lo Yebatel, in doing so, they're not going to nullify El Yishtane HaPasak Din HaKodem. They're not going to, God forbid, undo in a way where they break the law, but they're going to change the previous Pasak Din, that the halacha was like Beis Hilel. Kivan Sha'az Yeh Das Harov Kebeis Shamai. And why is that? Because at that time, as Ephraim just said, the Das Harov, the majority, will understand things at the level of Beis Shammai. So they will actually become the natural halacha, will just naturally go like them, according to the principles of Torah.
Everyone's gonna lie down and say Krishma.
I'm not allowed to say Krishna when you're lying down there.
Exactly.
It's Krishma Alamita, doesn't that mean?
Yeah, Krishma Lamita.
You don't lie down for this?
Here, so let's get busy with these footnotes, I think. I don't know.
What about the hand notes?
It's going to take up pretty much the rest of the class, but I think the
some of the
footnotes are
hand
good.
notes?
Handouts?
Hand notes instead of footnotes.
That's cute. All right, so,
I tried to make a funny one, didn't really work.
yeah. No, keep trying.
I will.
Okay. So anyway, so let's try and do some of these notes. So basically, he says over here, we're going off the Indian of then the Das Harov will be like Beis Shammai, right? The majority will go like Beis Shammai. And in this, he says in footnote 60, and it's really going to lead into like basically a bunch of footnotes. He says, "V'ma kol shekain v'kal v'chomer." From a how much more so? Mizeh shebeis din gadol shedarshu bechas min amidos kefi ma shenir beineihem shadin kain. How much more so from the fact that a beis din which darshans out one of the midos, right? The 13 midos that the Torah is nidreshes behen, right? There's like kal v'chomer, etc. And they come to a conclusion that the din is such and such, right? Shebinyanim ke'elu pligi beis Shammai ubeis Hilel. Vidanu din, right? And basically upon one of these things, it would be that Beis Shammai and Beis Hilel was arguing about one of these principles, and the Sanhedrin comes along and Danu din, they make the judgment. V'ma'amar achareim Beis din acher, and another Beis din would stand after this Beis din. V'nira lo tam acher listuroso, and they would find another rational way of looking at this thing to undo what the previous Beis din did. They are allowed to undo the previous ruling and judge it according to the way that they see it. Shenemar, as it says, because it says there's a very great emphasis in Parsha Shoftim that you have to go according to the judge that will be in those days, in your days. And from here comes the principle: you have to go after the Beis Din in your generation. Now, there's another concept we're going to get to here, that if the Beis Din has to really trust itself and have certain principles in place for itself to actually change a law from a previous generation. That's in the Beis Din's hands, though. We have to rely on them. They're the Beis Din. They're the wise people of the generation. But should they, mamash, come and tell us something more or less radical and undo a previous generation's law, the Torah tells us, you have to go according to the judges of your days. You can't say, well, I hold from a previous psak from a different generation where people were wiser then. You can't do that, right? And it's in general a huge principle, just in terms of, shebiyamecha. Where here it says in slightly different language, you have to go after the Beis Din of your generations. Valachas kama v'kama, how much more so? That's even if the Beis Din should come up with a.
The asterisks
I'm in the footnote.
60.
Yeah, 3 lines from the bottom. How much more so? So anyway, a later court can do that, and how much more so? The Rebbe says, if the later court that comes out is what's called Gadol Min HaRishon B'Chachma U'B'Minyan. These are the credentials I was talking a moment ago. That the second court is greater than the first one, both in Chokhmah and Minyan. In other words, they have more votes to the side of the change, and they're wiser people. Then for sure they can undo a previous generation's ruling. In other words, we find that this happened less and less once the Sanhedrin was disbanded, because basically in principle we say that those people were wiser than us, and therefore never practically is there such a thing as undoing a previous generation's law. But it's not because you can't, it's because we're humbled to our forefathers. But in the days of the Sanhedrin it was existing, this could totally happen. A next generation of Sanhedrin would say, they were all wise, right? Especially if they considered themselves wiser than the generation that came before, which could happen. And we're definitely thinking that's going to happen when Mashiach's Sanhedrin will sit. They're going to be wiser even than the Sanhedrin that paskin like Beis Hilel, right? So they're going to be able to change the law.
Let's say it's just Moshe Rabbeinu that comes. Forget about the Sanhedrin, which is smarter than the whole Sanhedrin of the previous generation. So in a certain sense, when it comes to that, that's something that we also talk about. Ein l'cha ela shofet shebiyamecha. All you have is the judge in your day. So in terms of realizing that there's a Moshe in every generation, and that the Rebbe was him, so it's not such a smart thing to start saying, well, yeah, but I go like, some previous psak in a previous generation. Because the whole idea, why do you go like the judge in your generation, is because he's seen everything that came before him. And he's the wisest Jew in town. So if in other words, you're assuming that you're able to analyze the history and the facts and the case better than the Moshe of the generation, and that's the only reason that gives you credibility to paskin according to a previous generation's ruling. It's not because the previous generation is wiser. You're not comparing the previous generation to the Rebbe. You're comparing yourself to the Rebbe and his analysis of the previous psak to your own. So it's actually quite foolish if you really hold by another sage to be like on another level than you, to paskin otherwise. But nonetheless, the Rebbe wouldn't do such a thing as brazen as changing the psak from Hilel to Shamai without a Sanhedrin, because you're not allowed to do that. So obviously you're not going to see the Rebbe doing something that you're not allowed to do al pi Torah. So Rebbe's saying that this is going to happen when there is Mashiach Sanhedrin. In other words, when it's all put into place. But many things the Rebbe did sort of lead a new campaign, or wake up the Jews to unearth an old tradition that people said, yeah, why do we have to do this? Where do I see birthdays? Where do I see putting tefillin on Jews in the street? I paskin like da. So that's a bit of a chutzpah, really. That means you're holding yourself in a certain sense to be higher.
Could I ask just a confirmation here?
Yeah.
You said, Rav, that just to confirm, so when Mashiach comes, the first thing that the Messianic Sanhedrin does is it paskins everything, switches over from Hilel to Shamai, and then after that they could change it again, and that would be legit?
I didn't say that's the first thing they're going to do, but I'm saying that's going to happen. And in terms of changing it again, they could, but they won't, is what we're going to say, because Shammai's arguments were smarter, and that's why Hilel didn't understand them in the first place. But in the future, we're going to see that they're going to understand them. That's what Ephraim was getting to.
Right.
And therefore, they're not going to go back to the simpler arguments. They're going to get more and more Shammai-like, because they're going to be brighter and brighter. But yes, theoretically, they could do whatever they want. The brighter people get, they can change a psak from a previous din.
So is there a possibility that with greater intelligence we'll have there'll be post-Shamai and post-Hillel?
There is no such thing really as post-Shamai and post-Hillel, because again, it's just like, you can, you can't. The only difference is 49 reasons why you can, or 49 reasons why you can't. So they might come up with different reasons, but paskining like Shammai means you say it's usser. So there's not any other options. There's no third option. It's yes or no.
Do we understand Shammai's logic today?
What?
Do we understand Shammai's logic today?
We're getting there.
Will things be more strict?
Things are going to be extremely more strict. Everything's going to be more strict.
More uncomfortable for us?
You're asking one of the questions that's the topic of the Sikha, so I'm going to hold off on that until we get there. Leon?
Six places in the Talmud that say Chumrah.
Okay, 6, sorry. You're correcting me there. I thought it was 3. Yeah. Yeah, Makule base Shammai. Yeah.
Also gonna be Like all the עניין של הלכת כבד שמאי זה because we have another high level, that's because that we can take more of Buddhist. That's also going to be in the Kula from Bet Shammai also is halacha kebed
Mastama, because there's going to be his klalus of the midos. We said that there has to be a certain blending, in some small way, of the chesed and the gevur and the chesed. Otherwise, it's like two kavim that don't know how to unite with each other, and that's basically like the Indian of tohu. So, a machloikis, l'shem shamayim, is called the machloikis Hilel and Shamai, because it's l'shem shamayim, because it's basically the whole thing. Shamayim is zah, shem is malchus, and l'shem shamayim is a fusion and the achdus of all those spheros and everything is dafka when it's like Hilel and Shamai, where they're not stubbornly doing it because they want to be like themselves. It's that they're leaning towards that midah, but if it's kedusha, every midah automatically certainly has a semblance, a remnant of the opposite midah inside of it. That's what makes it holy, because the world is not polarized in such a way. It's like a yin and yang lahavdil type of situation. They got that from us. Okay.
So is new Torah what they need to be new? New decision, new halacha?
Every single thing is going to be new under the sun. It's just that it's not going to be something we never heard about. It's going to be a different way of explaining Hilel to go like Shamai.
That's the new Torah.
Not even really. That's actually not really the new Torah. The only new Torah is shechting the animal, which is now usher, is going to then be permissible. But the truth is, in a certain sense, that's what's called Torah Chadasha. That's like the poster child for Mashiach coming along and making this big change. But according to what we're saying now, yes, it looks like there's going to be many, many halachic changes, like mamish every single one.
But just based on Hilel and Shamai.
I'm saying again, when you say based on Hilel and Shamai, what is Hilel and Shamai? They're not inventing the halachas. Remember, for a long time there was no arguments. There was just many ways of looking at the Torah. How you doing? And there was agreement. At a certain point, argument fell in. Instead of just like understanding different ways of looking into Hashem's wisdom, but all paskening the same, they actually understood Hashem's different wisdom and paskened differently on it. So you wind up, and that was Hilel and Shammai just represent sort of like a state in Jewish history where instead of just knowing the different opinions, they actually started to argue and pasken differently. So what we're saying is that they're going to switch it over and pasken like that. All right, so we're still at the end of this footnote. So how much more so when the one second here.
Whoa, nice.
Go out.
It's hot, you know what I'm saying? We're a big group of guys here. Get it going.
Oh,
All right.
it's good, thank you.
All right, so basically, when I start seeing people like fall asleep and like dripping in sweat, then that's a nice symbol. All right, so anyway, how much more so when the actual court is greater in wisdom and in number? Sha'az yachol levatel gam gezerah o takana uminhag. Then they can, such a court has the power to nullify a previous decree, nullify a previous takana, also like a decree or minhag, shepasha b'chol Yisrael. Even though the entire Jewish people took it upon themselves, such a court like that can come up and just completely change the law, because ultimately the law is in the hands of the Sanhedrin. So now in the sub-footnotes, and the reason, again, the Rebbe wrote these footnotes. So I mean, it's part of the Sikha really, and it's actually like even a better part of the Sikha, because he went back over his original words and felt the need to add things in.
Getting deep, the sub footnotes.
Yeah, the sub, and then there's a sub, by the way.
I was going to ask that.
All right, so now this is going on the Indian of if a court is greater in chokhmah and minyan, in wisdom and in number. So he says, Mistaber Lomer, he's in this little star at the bottom. We can logically say, that the future Sanhedrin, based in Agadol, will be greater than any Beis Din that ever sat in any generation before them, in Chachma and Minyan. In other words, there'll be more wise people, and they'll be wiser than the people that came before. Because since in the future, as the quote from the Rambam, we will all be brilliantly wise. So the number of sages that are going to agree with Shammai are going to be vastly more than even the number that agreed with Hilel before. There's going to be more judges, there's going to be more people on the level that they like sort of their vote matters, as it were.
Wait,
God-
so you're going to have a Sanhedrin that's bigger than 70 people?
No, not necessarily, but as we said before, it wasn't just the Sanhedrin that was like the ranked Jews. We had, like I was saying, I kind of said a joke yesterday, but it was kind of on point. Like we put all of our money into football stadiums and beer sales. You know, the whole economy of the empire of Israel was like an economy of judges, and there was thousands upon thousands of brilliant scholars everywhere in the land at the times of the temple. It was unbelievable. And it's discussed like openly in the Rambam, and to get a little picture of how great these men were, even to be a candidate to sit on the Sanhedrin, which means that certainly all of them had this property, because there's many candidates for the Sanhedrin, and most of them didn't make it, only 71 made it. You had to know the whole Torah, which is itself crazy, but this is already a lesser wisdom, and it's more meaningful to us. You had to know most of the languages of the world. So every single person who sat on there had to know at least 36 languages, and for sure they knew all the languages, because everybody was trying to get to the Sanhedrin. And there was hundreds of lower courts that were ranked, that were basically waiting for their turn, not only to get to the top of their little court, but then to get graduated to the court above them, and graduated to the court above them, to ultimately sit in the Sanhedrin. So in order to get to the Sanhedrin, it was the cream of the crop of like the best of the best that the world has ever seen of like wisdom. You know, we didn't even write the oral Torah down at this time. We're talking about minds that contain the entire Torah inside of them without writing. You know, so it was some, and we're saying in the future we're going to be greater than that, because the whole world we're going to be nothing but Torah scholars. Basically, we're not going to have anything else to do. So therefore, when I say that there's going to be more people voting like Beis Shammai, it doesn't only mean necessarily in the Sanhedrin. It just means of Am Yisrael, we're going to hold that way. It's going to be, if the Sanhedrin enough, it would have been enough to paskin that way. But even beyond that, it's going to just be the proper understanding of like most of the people. Okay, so he's saying that it's going to be Gadol Yosher Min Chachmei Ador Shekiblu Divrei HaBeis Din B'chol Ador Shlifnei. It's going to be bigger than the previous Batei Dinim. Ve'elu sheyivchru mikol Yisrael, and those that will be chosen from amongst the whole Am Yisrael, who in general will be called Paskin by the Rambam Chachamim Gedolim. Those will be chosen out of the Chachamim Gedolim for the Beis Din HaGadol of Mashiach Mamish. Bevadai Chachamim Hachei Gedolim. They're going to be the most unbelievably wise people that ever lived on the earth. Yoser Ador Shlifnei, wiser than anyone who lived before now. How much more so that the Rosh Yeshiva, the Av Beis Din, the Nasi, She'omed Tachas Moshe Rabbeinu, that who's called the prince who stands in the place of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is he called standing in the place of Moshe Rabbeinu? Because this Sanhedrin model is exactly where the whole thing was based on Moshe and his 70 elders. The reason why there's 71 members in the Sanhedrin is because Moshe was told by Hashem, gather for yourself 70 elders, and you'll make the course. So from that time on, it's been 70 of the wisest Jews, and the 71st is the one who holds Moshe Rabbeinu's position amongst Am Yisrael. He's the greatest. So not only will the Jews be all wise, but the Jews chosen for the Sanhedrin will be unbelievable. And the one sitting on top of them, Melech HaMashiach, he will be so wondrous in wisdom. We said he's going to be wiser than Shlomo HaMelech. He's going to be wondrous in wisdom from all Av Beis Din that ever lived before him. And that's basically what Rambam paskins when he says he's going to be Gadol b'chochma Yosem Mishlomo. Say it again. Where? What? Where are you though?
What line?
Oh, va'al achas kama v'kama. How if it's like how much more so? So he'll be greater than any person that ever lived. Kolel Moshe Rabbeinu, including Moshe Rabbeinu, is going to be greater than. So Mashiach Yilamed Torah Gam Ima Tanoim V'Amoraim U'Moshe Rabbeinu, because Mashiach is going to teach Torah to all the people who rise from the dead, including all the Tanoim and the Amoraim and Moshe Rabbeinu himself. That's the big man right there. And you say, why do I need a Rebbe? Okay. So, not you. Hey, dude. So now, sub-footnote number 2. This is going on the Inyan of that the Beis Din has the ability to undo a takana or a gezerah or a minhag. So he says, Milvad devarim shirau Beis Din ligzor la'asram in addition to the ability of a Beis Din to decree things and to make things prohibited, to make a fence around the Torah, right? He's saying they also have an ability to undo previous decrees. That's even a greater power, obviously. Bechol yachol levatel Beis Din divrei Beis Din chaveru chutz mishmona asar davar shafilu yavo liyahu hu Beis Dinu enu shomin lo. So he says, except for there's 18 things that cannot be undone, that even if Eliyahu and his Beis Din will come and tell him they can't undo those things. So there's a few things not, but in general they can't.
Do you happen to have the list lying around?
He says the list is the list is in, he says here, Gemara of Avodah Zarah, Daf Lamed Vav, Daf.
Do we have the
Aleph.
lying around?
What'd you say?
Do we have an Oscar of Avodah Zarah lying around?
No, but we have several other versions of it. Okay. Done with the footnotes. Let's go back into the body of the mimer here.
Oh man.
The Sicha.
Super sub footballs.
That was a
Could you tell me again Avodah Zarah 32a?
36a. Okay, so going back to the top of that column, or it's actually the bottom of the first column. Patam hadavar. The reason why in the future the whole perspective of the Chochmei Yisrael, of the wise men of Israel, will change, and start thinking like Beis Shamai. Yesh Lomer. The Rebbe says we could say Al Pi Divrei Gemara, according to what the Gemara said, Beis Shamai Mechadri Tefei. In other words, we already sort of said it, but the Rebbe is coming out with a chiddush. Why are they suddenly going to change their minds and go like Beis Shamai? So Rabbi says, look at the Gemara's words. It says the Beis Shammai was smarter. And don't we know that there's going to be a great amplitude of wisdom? So that's why they're going to go like Beis Shammai, because they're smarter. They're going to be smarter. Shamai lasam b'chochmas ha-Torah gedolah b'mailas Beis Hilel. Their greatness in Torah was greater than Hilel's greatness. Beis Hilel's greatness. It's just that nowadays we don't go like them. And that's because most of the wise Jews today who have to determine halacha according to their own understanding, they don't understand why we should go like Beis Shammai. It doesn't make sense to them. And this is similar to what I hinted to this a few days ago and today also. This is what the sages said also. Shelo kavu halacha ka Rabbi Meir, that oftentimes they wouldn't make the halacha like Rabbi Meir, who was the greatest in his generation. I mean, Rashbi and he had some going there, but let's say he was. Av she'ein bedura kamoso, as it says here, quote, there was no one in his generation like him. Why didn't they paskin like him then? Because his friends couldn't understand him. They were like modeh, that he was like more brilliant than them, and he had all the keys to the palace. But when he tried to explain himself to them, they couldn't understand it that way.
This is Rabbi Meir, husband of Beruria?
Yeah.
Isn't it said that Beruria exceeded him?
Okay, but she wasn't on the Beis Din.
So she was the Gadol Hadar?
I don't know if she exceeded him in all ways. In certain arguments they had, she won.
Who's she?
She was not the Gadol Hador, no.
His wife?
So she was Gadol though, Gadolah.
Who's she?
Rabbi Meir's wife.
Oh, it was his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's wife wins an argument.
I know, that's
No, but Beruria is next level, man.
No, the man
She
last
must have
two
been
words.
very
Yes,
follow
Gary
next
She's
level.
gonna be smarter.
She must have been
Gary?
translated.
So, point being is that even though Rabbi Meir was smarter than them and they knew that, he couldn't explain to them why the halacha is the way he saw it. So in other words, similar here, even though we know Shammai is smarter than us, we know he's right, seriously, even if you know he's right, if you can't understand it and paskin with what your eyes see, you're not allowed to paskin because someone's smarter than you know he's right. Even the Rebbe, literally. The Rebbe tells you, if you don't understand, that's why the Rebbe is going out of his way here basically to say that one of the things Mashiach is going to do is take this like nevuah status of knowing things are right, that no one man can understand, and fortunately he's going to be wiser than Shlomo, so he's going to be able to explain it to the Sanhedrin and make it make sense to everybody. That's the difference. It's not like the Rebbe said so do it. It's the Rebbe said so and explained so, and in so many letters that it's undeniable at this point. And that's a big difference. Masha Ein Kain, I've got another big footnote coming up here. Masha Ein Kain, Lasi Lavo. Not so in the future, it will be Kol Yisrael, everybody, and how much more so we said those who were chosen to be on the base din Gadol should be Yerushalayim will be Chacham Gadolim. So therefore, they won't have this problem of not understanding Beis Shammai. Ye Etzel Rubam, Ulai Etzel Kulam. It will be by most of them, or perhaps all of them, the Maila of Chachma of Beis Shammai, who was Machadei Tefei, who was sharper, and therefore they are going to all paskin Al Pi Klali Torah according to the simple principles of Torah. They're going to paskin like Beis Shammai. And this is why, look in footnote 61, it's also a cool thing. It says, Zeh Hatam, this is the reason, oh, we missed a little piece of another footnote, we'll leave it. Zeh Hatam, Dekai Mipligi B'Mesifta D'Rakia. There was an argument, I think it was about Beheres and Tsaras, and there was an argument in heaven. And it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it was Tahor. I think it was Rabbi Acha, if I'm not mistaken, who said, no, it was, and all the Chachamim, Rabbi Acha was also with Hashem on this, because he was the best in...
Good side to be on.
Yeah, but all the other Mesifta Rakia, the rest of the angelic court, they said it was Tameh. Seemingly, when they heard that Hashem said it was Tahor, how could they argue with him and not paskin like HaKadosh Baruch Hu? But this is the point. The Beis Din is not allowed to do that. Again, you're asking, where's the source from this? Even in the Masifta D'Rakia, it's like this. You can't paskin like Hashem just because Hashem said so. That's called Nevuah. And it's not called Torah. Torah is based, no, it might sound funny, but it's actually extremely brilliant. This is the way that Torah is, it's Hashem wants a dira b'tachtonim. If Hashem wanted to just decree that the world should go His way, He would have done it. He wants it that we should paskin, we should understand. It has to come through the mind of human beings in order to be called Torah. And this is what it means Achrei Rabbi Lahatzos. You have to go according to the majority of the Chachamim.
Today we have Chukim, what it's called,
But that's not an answer, because even Chukim, we have to paskin. Is this going to the category of the Chok? Can you do this? Can you do this? If you do it like this, is it us or is it mutter? Even on all realms of mitzvah, there's still discussion about what is the mitzvah and what you can and cannot do, and there's argument about that. So even though the principle of the mitzvah is b'chlal something which is, it's not today we have such a thing. Chukim, of course, came with the Torah to begin with, right? So even though there's a general principle, there's certain mitzvahs that b'chlal can't be understood, fine. But so let's say paraduma, but still, if the guy, burns the ashes and he's standing 10 kilometers away, or 5 kilometers away, or 3 kilometers away, we still have arguments as to what makes him tummy or what makes him not tummy. We still have an argument how to apply the principles of this chok, and in those things there's arguments. So in other words, we still have to go, even though we don't understand what the heck we're doing, we still have to bring it into our understanding of why we don't know what the heck we're doing.
What's the source for the heavenly court though?
Is in here. It's in. You love your sources, huh? If you go and look up all these sources, you let me know. 38. I think it's it says in Bava Metzia Pei Vav Amud Aleph.
Bava Metzia Pei Vav.
Okay, so he says that how can it be? Because they have to go al pi daitam. Even Lamaila, they have to go according to their understanding. And therefore, if they don't understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, which is a good chance they're not, they have to paskin according to what their mind says, as we said a few times already today. So let's just finish this little last paragraph here. And he says, "V'nimsa shla'asi lavo yeshinoi behalachas hilchos haTorah al pi teva." So all the laws are going to change in the future, but it's going to be in such a way that they're going to change naturally according to the nature of man. And it's going to all be as an outcome of a higher level of Torah learning. Right? And he says, and therefore everyone's going to go like Shamai. And this is going to be through and because there was a greater amplification of knowledge of Torah, like Beis Shammai had, who was wiser in general. Now, this is the big point. This like a sort of brings it all together. Why do we get into this conversation in the first place? Because we're saying this is al derech ubadugmas. This is very much similar to and an example of the heter of the shchita shorabar b'snapiri al leviasan. This is exactly what we were saying regarding the heter of the shchita, which is called Torah Chadasha Me'iti Teitzei. Because remember, what did we say? We said that when the secrets of the Torah were going to be revealed by Mashiach, then and only then was suddenly the halacha going to change from asur to mutter. Right? And it was going to be, this shchita is now going to be kosher. And because the two things that Mashiach had going for him, which was revealing all the secrets and changing this one law, obviously we said they have what to do with each other. And now we understand why will laws change suddenly when deeper levels of Torah come out, because when the mind changes, it also changes the piskei dinim, right? When you get wiser, you look at Torah a completely different way, and you understand things that you didn't understand before in Torah, to the point that you can change halacha. So again, this is not really a change. The Rebbe is shooting for this thing, and how is Mashiach allowed to change the laws? The Torah is a chok li'olam olmei olamim. You can't go right, you can't go left, you can't add, you can't subtract. How does it say Mashiach is going to come and change the law? So he's basing it on this principle that laws can change al pi Torah, actually, and it's not called change. It's when you get like wiser and deeper, you can say that right is left and left is right, so long as that's the way you understand it. So when all this new wisdom is going to come out, we're going to understand how this is a shechita which is kosher. So potentially, if we get to understand that by the end of the Sikha, maybe we could say we're living in such an era now. What's that? I'm saying it's crazy how the Rebbe is playing with you like that the whole time, you know? You're like, what, really?
Yeah, that's new Torah.
It's crazy.
Well, do you understand the paraduma at that time?
The Rebbe already explained the paraduma. Many seasons, many minds. He took care of that one already.
Are we saying then
That'll be next.
the way we were doing things before was that we were doing things wrong?
No, God forbid. Eilu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. They're all words of the living God. Right? It's just that this is a great principle. There is no such thing as right and wrong. As far as Hashem is concerned, there's 49 ways to make it kosher, and there's 49 ways to make it usher, and He's cool with that. God is with all of them. He has a combination of opposites. Just like there is a world and there's not a world. All there is Orein Sof, and there's Mamash of Metzias of creation simultaneously. No problem for the Eibishter. The problem is the problem for us. So if you want to paskin, you need to paskin according to the way your mind sees, and then that's true for you and all the people around you at that time. Should it change? It's true for you and all the people around you at that time.
This is going to be a loaded question you're not going to like, but does this sound like moral relativism?
More what?
Moral relativism?
Only if you want to say that. In other words, if you could say that things change, arbitrarily, then that you could say is moral relativism. Like basically whatever you decide, whatever your whims are.
Yeah.
But this is not really working like that. This is working with the Chochmei HaTorah. So in other words, in general, it's based on sages who are anything but morally relative, right? They have mamash like received a tradition, and with the tradition, it comes with principles, eternal principles, that should you utilize these principles and come up with information in such and such a way, it's not relative, it's not even optional. You have to paskin according to the way your eye sees. So up until all the time we've been living, no one's ever challenged any previous generation, because we don't see it any greater or better than any other, and no authority has ever said that we had. But there's going to be such an unbelievable amplification of wisdom, they're going to have to paskin differently, just like the ones that came before us had to paskin the way they paskin. They're not unlike moral relativism, which is basically it's on a whim, it's on emotion. You decide like willy-nilly, I don't like Jews, so let's just get rid of those guys because I have a plan for a better future. Where are you coming with this? Under what principles is this based? Our change is based on all the exact same principles. We have not changed our principles. We have a new wisdom to see through the exact same words, the exact same mitzvahs, the exact same objective eternal reality. We see that eternal reality without tampering with it in a brand new light.
Who's this Willie?
So this is like Nietzsche? I don't know.
Yeah, who's this willy
Why
nilly
not
guy?
Nietzsche?
I'm my mom.
Willy nilly?
He's like a...
Willie Nelson.
You know, you're like all running around with Willie Nelly.
Willy nilly. You said it, I didn't say it. I just pointed it out.
It's like all crazy.
That doesn't count as my joke of the day, Rabbi.
That's more relativism right there.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
All right.